Da da da! What's my good chair? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. Oh my goodness. I had a topic of discussion today. I really did. I got up this morning and, I delved into one of the content creators that I follow, a very smart gentleman. And, it got me thinking. It got me thinking in a way that kind of put me and set me in the mood, the tone of my day. And because it was dark and dreary, the clouds just cleared in the past half an hour. We got blue skies, but only for about a half an hour before the sun goes down. But being dark and dreary and expecting rain today, being with myself, not having conversations with anybody, it just felt very heavy. It felt very separated. I didn't feel separated. I felt very attached to what was going on. I just couldn't figure out what was going on. Every time I went in to renew and refresh my feed, it just seemed something else was catching my attention. And it's like, when you go in at night and you watch the 6 o'clock news. Hello, Tammy. Hello, Tammy. You go in and watch the 6 o'clock news, and you know you're not going to get those feel good topics, right? Sometimes it's that idea. My mom and dad used to say this all the time. Sometimes no news is good news. And they would reference that from the mailbox. If there were any bills coming in the mailbox, that wasn't good news, getting your monthly bills. But if you went to your mailbox and there was no news, sometimes that was good news. So I tried to look at that, what was going on today, in that frame, because I couldn't pinpoint the heaviness in any way. But at the same time, I didn't want to delve into it. I knew I could find topics, right? We know that we can go online and we can go just punch in the topic, headline news, and we'll get that heavy in our lives. And being that positive person, and I've always looked at myself as that person, no matter what life had to divvy out, what was going on in my relationships, in my work relationships, right? That things were always okay, that everything was going to be okay. But I do feel a little bit of separation going on out there, right? I don't know what that means. I am not connected in any way, I don't think. I do feel things out. I really do feel things out. But sometimes, when you delve into topics, our imaginations can take us away, right? We do have creative minds. Do you have a creative mind? I know you're always in emergency mode there, Tammy. I know you're always having to be on top of things. But do you have a creative aspect of yourself? Do you like art, gardening, right? Do you come up with amazing ideas for people to have fun? When I was a young adult, I had so much fun. I always thought, well, I didn't know. I always thought I would be something. But that was that creative mind where you would get an idea, you would run with it for a little while until something else caught your attention, and then you would run off in a different direction. It added a lot of fun, a lot of experience because, when you run with topics, you get to learn in the process. You might not stay long enough to be an expert in anything, but sometimes you don't need to be the expert. Sometimes you just need to know enough to get yourself into a conversation, to get yourself into a group, right? To get you into a frame of mind where you recognize, yeah, maybe this was not the direction for me. This is not as fun as I thought it would be. And I am a true believer that whatever you do, whatever you expect, and we're going to just stop for a second, we're going to send some good cheer out there. Let them get to their destination. Let it be a false alarm. They can turn around and it's a fire truck. I felt there were two vehicles. Oh, two fire trucks. So something's going on, right? Something's going on. That's my news, right? That's not something that you could say no news is good news because the fire trucks are involved, especially two of them. Something is going on. Oh, thank you. Yeah, two fire trucks. That doesn't happen often. I have to tell you the truth. That doesn't happen often. I have the fire trucks going by. I think they've been at the bill. Ooh, there's another one, right? That might be the sergeant. That might be an ambulance. That might be a police car. I don't know what that is, but something's coming. But I really do hope that they get to their destination, that they knock on that door and everything is okay. If you haven't hung out with me before, I live right behind. Yeah, it was the supervisor going by. They have great big Yukon SUVs. You can't miss them because they're all painted up in the emergency colors and stuff. Thank you. Right? Let's hope that's the last one, right? And they can end up back at the station and enjoy their evening, right? Enjoy the evening, especially it's the last half an hour before the sun goes dark and it gets sun. But it has, like I said, it has been a strange day. And like I said, they were here this afternoon in our building, the ambulance and the fire truck. They weren't here for very long. Not sure if they even took anybody away, right? But yeah, they were here. They are a very busy station. Like that's definitely a full-time job. It's not like that what I was saying the other day where they were out in the front parking lot playing volleyball, the crew. But that's not the norm. That's not the norm because they go by numerous times during the course of the day when I'm home. I can't imagine how many times they go by when I'm not home, right? Because I'm not always home, right? I was home today because it was a very, very dreary day. And if it was a nice day, guarantee with that heavy that I was feeling, I would have been outside. Connection with Mother Nature, it's like medicine for me. It truly is. I live in the city, so I can't say that it's go outside for some fresh air. I do live on a busy street. I live close to downtown. You look at the boulevards, they still haven't done a good spring cleanup yet. Spring hit us kind of late, if it hit at all. I think we're going to go right into summer after these next few days. And I could honestly say I don't think we got much of a spring at all. It just went straight from winter winter to summer. That warm weather is picking up in the next few days. It's going to be cloudy and rainy, but the temperatures are going to be out there or up there. I haven't had the need to put the air conditioner on. except when I go to bed because I have nice big fluffy quilts and I appreciate the sound of the motor on the air conditioner. Lots of sensitives, right? We have hypervigilance, and in that hypervigilance, you can have bad sleeping habits because you're waiting for the murderers and rapers to come into the house, right? That's your hypervigilance, always paying. I'm just using that analogy. It could be anything. It could be somebody walking upstairs on the ceiling, right? It could be somebody dropping something on the floor. It could be somebody talking out in the hallway. It could be, for me, oh my goodness, because I'm hearing it right now, is my kitchen sink dripping. Right? So for me, having a fan or having an air conditioner motor going on, it really makes it so I can have good sleepies so that I'm not concentrating on what's going on in, well, I'm not going to say my surroundings, but in my building, right? In my building. Me too. I love being outside and feeling one with Mother Nature. And I love to listen and observe and watch everything around me and take it all in and be in tune with it. That sounds exactly like me, Tammy, when I go outside, lots of people, they go out and about, and when I'm out and about, I don't usually go on my phone for any reason. If I'm on a bus, right, lots of people, I look at people and they're so zoned in to what's going on in their phone, and for me, I'm looking out the window, right? I'm looking out the window and looking at the scenery, even if I've seen the same bus route 100 times, right? Everything changes. Even with the weather, things look different, right? There's new construction going on. People are out and about. New stores pop up. There's so much to see and appreciate when you're out and about. When I go for my walks, my favorite thing to do is because Manitoba is, or Winnipeg specifically, is a pretty older city. It was one of the very first cities, big cities, to be popularized, right? And we have a lot of old neighborhoods, late 1800s, early 1900s. We're not the States. We don't have any of those 1700 homesteads, though I have come across them in my urban exploring. But when I did, they were usually old log homes, right? They weren't actually houses with flat siding and stuff like that. But being out and about, I am out and about. My favorite things to do are to look at these old houses, look at their front yards. Lots of times, if I have the opportunity, I love to walk down back alleys because I like to look in the backyards. I'm not Snoopy, right? I'm not being, what are you, a peeper or anything like that. But walking down the back alley, I'm looking at people's gardens and looking at their patio furniture. I'm looking at renovations on the houses. Lots of times, because housing is so inexpensive here in this city, big companies will buy houses and they just sit on them because taxes are so inexpensive that they can just buy these properties. And then, when pricing and land goes up, they can tear them down and build condos and stuff and make some profit in that, right? Even paying taxes every year. So there are lots of old abandoned houses. And it's not so much the houses that they want, because normally they tear the houses down, but the land, right? So might be a little house on a nice big lot or something, and they'll buy these houses outright. They don't even make it to the market because people are actually getting letters in their mailboxes saying, "Oh, be interested in buying your house if you're interested in selling." So they don't even get to the market, right? Because these big companies are buying them up. But I don't mind that so much because it keeps the neighborhoods rejuvenated. Like, even in the neighborhood that I live on the street that I live on, it's all apartments for at least, oh, 5 blocks, all apartments, except for one little teeny weeny house. And that house happens to be right across the street from where I live. It looks so out of place, but that property has got to be worth a a ton of money because it's a father and son. I know because I've lived here for years now and because I pay attention and it's right across the street for me that, I know it's a father and son that live there. I've never seen a woman over there. And they were doing some work on their roof last year and stuff. So I got to pay attention a little bit, right? But they're not selling, and I'm sure they're getting offers all the time on that piece of property. And you know what would happen then is another big apartment block would go there, and it's the only house on the street. There isn't another one, right? Now, if you go the opposite direction, right, cross the busy road, then yeah, you'll come into the larger mansions because once you get onto the other side, yeah, the houses get really, really big. I can't imagine why they got so big. I don't know, the people in the early 1900s had really great big families. You know, it just seems strange because now all those mansions, they're all broken up into little suites and apartments and stuff. So it helps to keep the utilities down because it must be really expensive to heat those big old houses in the winter time, right? But what I was going to say, I don't mind so much that these companies come in and they buy up these properties because it keeps the neighborhoods rejuvenated. You know what happens when houses and neighborhoods, they stay the same. People get older, not able to get out there and do the repairs and the renovations, and things get worn down. And when things get worn down, it affects the prices of the entire neighborhood. And then, people don't want to live in that neighborhood. And then the riffraff, they move in and the neighborhoods just go down. So I really do like to see new housing. I like to see new businesses come into the neighborhoods. And I do live in a very dynamic neighborhood, lots of residential, but lots of retail and grocery, and it's a very unique neighborhood. It's kind of like Greenwich Village, right? If you Greenwich Village in New York, right? It's like Greenwich Village in the place where I live, and it's a lovely little neighborhood. And I think for the most part of me being here in this city, this has been basically the neighborhood that I have lived in within probably 3 or 4 miles around that I have lived in this neighborhood. And I really do love this neighborhood. And I know lots of people. It's hard for me to go out and about and not bump into people that I know, that I can just stop and have conversations. And a lot of my jobs have been in this neighborhood too. Some of the bars that I worked in, some of the restaurants that I worked in, some of the retail stores that I worked in have been in this this neighborhood. And I had large group friends in large groups that we got to know lots of people. Even in this building, I've known some of these people for oh 30 years, right? And some of them know me, but I don't remember them, right? And I think that's okay. We can't expect to remember everybody. When I go out and about all the time, I see people that visually I recognize all the time. And sometimes I will say, "Oh, have we met before? Do we know each other?" I'm really sorry, right? Because lots of times when they see me, I can hear them behind me or hear them in front of me, Cindy, Cindy, Cindy. And I have to, who's that? And then I spot them and I'm going, still, who's that? And I don't pretend to remember somebody if I don't remember them, but I always stop and have a conversation, and sometimes in that conversation something will jump my memory, and oh right, I remember them now, right? And so it's something that it kind of makes me feel like home. It makes me feel like I belong, right? And it makes me appreciate, that I must have had something to contribute in a way that people still remember me. People still stop to say hello and have a small chit chat with me. And that's a feel good feeling, right? Lots of people, they don't have that. They live quiet lives, and that life could have been mine, right? I appreciate that quiet time now. I take advantage in that because I was always somebody stumbling over myself in connecting. And, it wasn't that I intentionally served people, but it was in that idea that I felt that I needed to be a part of a community. I felt that I needed to be helping out. I wanted people to like me. And so I would spend a lot of energy, a lot of time around other people. And that's the way I have always been, right? Always chasing that belong. And I have to look at it as a good thing that I spend a lot of time now in that peacefulness, in that quietness of time that I spend with myself, right? And I think that's intent that the world is made up to keep us in the busy, busy, busy so that we don't have a chance to slow down, get outside, go for walks, look at people's backyards, listen to the birds, feel the breeze on our face, right? Connect with mother nature. And I guess that's where all that old conversation came from, was just that connection to what's going on around you. It doesn't necessarily have to be mother nature, but it is in connecting with your surroundings, connecting with the people, connecting with what you're doing, right? Connecting with a possible opportunity to maybe bump into somebody that you know. And it never fails. I always stop and I always end up having conversations, at the very least stopping and just saying hi, have a great day, I'm just off to do this. But lots of people, they spend a lot of time on their own, right? The world that we live in offers that opportunity to spend a lot of time on our own because everything's at our fingertips now, that we have freed up time in our cooking with air fryers and microwaves and technology that we can entertain ourselves with TV. And that's the idea, that's entertainment, right? But we have to be able to learn and expand and feel things out. And when you're sitting there with your player, right? If you're playing videos, that you're sitting there and you're just concentrating, right? To make sure that you get through the game without being killed or whatever it does, right? That that's keeping you busy, and that's keeping you away from opportunities to make a new friend, to have a conversation, to learn something new. We can still utilize what the world has to offer. I believe it was invented, right? And it wasn't something that somebody just thought and it happened. It was a set of ideas, and it was perseverance, and it was out of the need to put a roof over your head, and it was wanting to do something new or something to contribute, that it evolved, right? It evolved. And when it evolves in that way, it kind of makes you wonder why, right? And I think it was exactly for that, so that we would have free choice to expand if we wanted to, right? To have a voice as a small man, to have that opportunity to say that you had your say, or be able to learn something on your own, right? Being a YouTube creator, it's not just coming in and hitting that live button, though it is, but there are lots of things you have to learn in that process, and in doing videos and editing and learning about the analytics and going in and learning, how to connect with people. Now, it doesn't seem that was my issue, right? And I'm grateful, right? But that's the idea, that you utilize what you're naturally comfortable with, right? Not necessarily good with, but what you're comfortable with. When I first started on YouTube, oh my goodness, just go back to some of those very first videos that I did. I didn't have good cameras. They didn't have high definition back then. So everybody making videos back then, it was pretty bad. And I wish, right, that I had that opportunity to go back there and use high definition and be a good film creator and redo some of those wonderful explores that I did way back when I first started on YouTube. I do believe my first YouTube video was in 2014, right? 12 years come September, or September? No, December, on New Year's Eve was my first video that I uploaded. I started my YouTube channel. I was in 2013, but I started it without uploading. It was a matter of setting it up, deciding the topics that I wanted to bring to the table. It was practicing. It was like sitting in and listening to other teachers in content creation and learning the process. And then, right, making my first video and then saying, well, let's upload this video on New Year's Eve, right? 2014. So I can say I started my channel in 2014, because 24 hours later, I'd be sitting here right now saying I started my channel in 2015. 2012? I've got videos up from 2012. I'm going to have to go back there, Tammy. I know you would know. I would know you would know for sure. 2014. That's yeah, I'm going to go back there because I keep telling people that my first video was in 2014, but if it was in 2012, I don't want to misrepresent myself. 2 years is 2 years, isn't it? Right? It's quite possible that you are right in that. Oh, nice hot fresh cup of coffee. Let's come in, see what we're yibber yabbering about. Do, 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 do. Oh my goodness. Uh Cindy, that's cool and very interesting. Your life stories on Winnipeg and Manitoba. I love Canada. I love my Canadian lake neighbors too. Only the Great Lakes separate us here in Michigan. They actually say that Manitoba is going to be the most important province of all of Canada at one point, only because of the Great Lakes, Tammy, because it's mutual dominion between Canada and the United States. I guess you guys share half of the lakes. So half of Lake Superior belongs to you, half of Lake Michigan, or maybe all of Lake Michigan is yours. I don't know, depending on how the boundaries go across Canada. But because you guys share the rights to the waterways, it's a little bit different than what goes on here in Manitoba. Because here in Manitoba, we also have two Great Lakes, but it's not considered part of the Great Lakes. It's Lake Winnipeg and Lake Manitoba. 14,000 kilometers, I think, Lake Winnipeg is. It's They're big lakes. I mean, they have waves. Like when we go to the beach, yes, they have beaches on these lakes, and you could go surfing, maybe not surfing, but they're great big fishing barges out in the middle of the lakes. You can't see you couldn't see. It's like an ocean when you go to these lakes. They're pretty big, but these lakes drain into the Hudson Bay, and they're freshwater lakes, right? But because of the um, the way the water runs, it runs north, not south. That the water becomes brackish, which means it mixes with the salt water of the Atlantic Ocean through the Hudson Bay, and in fact, uh, the Assiniboine River and the Red River that run through Manitoba, they actually crisscross right in the middle of downtown Winnipeg, two great big huge rivers. Um, they actually are part of the Mississippi system, and they also run north. So they're not Canadian. They're not Canadian rivers, and I suspect as global warming, and like it might not feel like global warming, right? But global warming is here, and I would say maybe in a couple thousand years, right, that eventually the states will reroute those rivers so they don't come up north, right? That those rivers won't be accessible over the border. It would make sense. I mean, if I was running a country, if I was president of the country, right, and the water was detrimental to my population, to make sure that everybody's surviving, I wouldn't want that water to be leaving the country. And what I would do is I would dig great big trenches and then just reroute them so they go back south, right? Does that make sense? I mean, makes sense to me, but they say Manitoba is going to be the most important province in Canada because of the water systems that we hear. because we're not sharing rights with the states because they're in the interior of Manitoba, these lakes. And these lakes are distinctly in our province. So we're not even sharing them with other provinces on either side of us in any way either. So it makes it interesting, right? We even have underground lakes here. They have a special name for them. I can't remember. Underneath my brother-in-law's farm, he has a great big, huge, like we were part of Lake Agassiz, right? um, when the glaciers melted. Eventually, They receded, and what's left of that lake is Lake Winnipeg and Lake Manitoba. But there, a lot of that lake is still under the ground. And on the southern part of the province, you can't hog farm, right? Because they don't want that water contaminated, right? They don't want it contaminated in any way. So there's no hog farming, no pigs or anything allowed. And that's why, right, land in that area is very inexpensive to buy land down there, but you would have to have another resource in order to bring money into your household. My brother-in-law, he turned his land into Christmas tree farm, but his trees are so huge. Some of them are like over 50, 60 feet high, and yeah, you can't turn those into Christmas trees anymore. He wasn't able. He was his own boss. He was an entrepreneur, and he was making Christmas tree lots in the city, but he couldn't cut those trees down fast enough, right? And then working that Christmas tree farm on his own, it became just too much because you got to do a lot of pruning and stuff to keep the shape, and they just grew right out of hand, but so beautiful. His land is probably worth more money than any of the land in that entire southern part of our province, only because he's forested it now, right? And especially after the Great Fire, they had a big fire that wiped out everything, forest fire in that area. So he started planting shortly after that. And so he's pretty much got most of the forest down there. It is pretty beautiful. And actually, if you watched my Surviving Cindy series, I did my fort on his land. And so a lot of those trees that you see in that series that I did, and if you haven't been in and watched any of my other videos, I suggest you go in. I explore the inside and the outside. I'm here in my podcast and I'm doing these live shows, right? 5, 6 days a week. But I do urban exploration. I explore abandoned farms, abandoned houses, abandoned barns, one room schoolhouses, old abandoned churches, right? That I've done bushcraft uh, series, the Walk with Me series, my provincial park tours where I go off every September and I go camping and I do reviews. I'm a Google girl, also a Google guide for Google Maps, so I do Google reviews on my provincial parks. I'm actually 10%. I'm in the top 10% of provincial park, or not even provincial parks, right? Just park reviewer. They say when they send me these little congratulation emails every once in a while, right? When I pick up views. I've got over 10 million views on my photographs on Google Maps too. So that's right. I've been a Google girl for a very long time, right? And I suspect, right? And I'm optimistic I will be doing it for a very long time going forward, especially, right? We're going to be going into those retirement years. I'd like to say if I can make it without going back to work, and I have been thinking about, right, just picking up a position somewhere, just a few days a week at the very most, but just to help pay for my trip in September. But when I was thinking about that, I was thinking, if I do take on a job, I want a job where I can be around vulnerable, where I can make uh, friends and have relationships and conversations with people who may have struggled in some of the ways that I have struggled in my own life, right? And, when I looked at all my past jobs, in hospitality and in customer service, it just clicked in my head. Well, that's what I've been doing in all my positions always, right? Uh, and so why not delve into it even deeper? Whether it is, I was thinking of maybe doing some addictions counseling, that maybe I could do some social work. I could even do some volunteer, right? And I should be doing some volunteer work because I'm not working right now. But I thought, volunteer work, I'm the idea is to raise money so that I can go off and have these magnificent trips, right? But at the same time, it sure would be nice to say I retired early. I mean, it might have only been 1 year earlier than retirement, but at least I could say I retired early. That would be pretty cool. Okay, let's come down into the conversations here. Um, Me either, Cindy. I only use my phone outside to take a photo or a videotape something for yourself. Maybe you would be interested in being a Google guide, Tammy, because you could do things like take photos of your favorite stores. What it helps is when people are looking for locations, right? That you can post a picture, and then that picture will be shown to somebody when they're trying to drive or get somewheres. And I do that all the time. Like when I got my glasses, I did it for my optometrist, and it helps them to get customers. And not only do I take a picture, but I will give them a review at the same time, whether or not they gave me good service. Sometimes if I go to a restaurant, and I go to restaurants so rarely, it's a special occasion, right? Then I go off to a restaurant, but when I do, like, I'll give a Google review. I give Google review. Well, I haven't given Google. Oh, I have given Google reviews for the Tim Hortons, but I do go through corporate Tim Hortons to do reviews because they give me extra points on my points card so that, then I can earn points and make free coffees. Because that's one thing I'm quite proud of myself is I save points, and when I go on these trips in September, in my Ontario provincial park tours that I do, then I can do that entire trip and get free coffees through the whole trip. And I was doing great with those points, but lately I've been right using my points for coffees here and there, right? But I yeah, I kind of enjoy being a Google guide, and I always have. I wish I could do more, like you, right? I'd be doing it full time, and as I do social media and I take photos, and my landscapes are so right. I should be on Instagram and putting my pictures up again on Instagram. I've been thinking about going back on Instagram just one day a week. I was thinking maybe Wednesdays I would not do my podcast here on Wednesdays and instead go spend an hour on my Instagram and right do a little bit of copy work in my writing, um, if you ever hang out on Instagram, I'm there, right? All my posts are still there. You can just go right into my content and see everything that I post. In fact, this live show that I'm doing right now is is a show that started here, and I was doing it once a week. Then I went to Instagram and I started doing it 2 weeks, and then I started getting more consistent and I was doing it 5 days a week, and it was in practicing my craft. And I think it was shortly after I finished my cards. When I finished my cards, I brought my podcast back here on YouTube full time. And I think I've been here back on YouTube now for over 2 years. I was always here on YouTube because I always had my Sunday show, Chatters Live. So every Sunday night I was here anyway. But my Monday to Friday show, I brought it here. But I was thinking maybe I would give one of my Monday to Friday days and give it to Instagram and go back on Instagram once a week, right? I had a nice little network going on Instagram too, and I got to meet lots of wonderful people in the process. And it was more, lots of times it was kind of an interview kind of setup. So I got to actually do face to face conversations with people. And I found that interesting, but it wasn't my forte because you never know, right? Sometimes I get some people, sometimes it wasn't really good connection. And so I got self conscious on the quality of what I was bringing to Instagram at that time. I don't seem to have those kind of hiccups here on YouTube, right? It happens on occasion, but it's not really the norm. And if something messes up, it's usually me. It's not YouTube. Okay, you guys, just a little chit chat tonight makes me happy, right? Like I said, today was a little bit of a wiry day. I didn't know exactly. I couldn't put my finger on it. This word separation just felt like things were just kind of separated. I didn't feel separated in any way, but I just didn't want to go online just because everything just felt like the headline news, right? Like, I go online and the first thing that pops up on my screen is Ebola, right? Ebola in Africa. And I go, not again, right? We got this cruise ship virus going on, and now there's Ebola, and I just like, what's next? But that's the idea. Just putting the hairy, scary. These things have been around for a very long time, right? And I know it is serious, right? I know it is serious, but also at the same time, right? It's headline news and it's meant to catch your attention. It's meant to keep you in that frame of frazzled mind, right? And when you're in frazzled mind, your system just can't relax. And I would have much rather gone outside today and go for a walk, but the weather was not accommodating today. Tomorrow will be much better, right? It's going to be cloudy tomorrow. It's not going to rain for a couple of days. So I'm going to get out tomorrow, go for a walk, and get some fresh air. And maybe walk up and down some back lanes, pick up a cup of coffee, and just appreciate some time outside, right? And it always worked. It never fails me, never. But yeah, I appreciate we get to keep it a little bit light tonight, and I feel good for that, and it's not like I'm avoiding the topic of discussion. The topic of discussion today was going to be worthiness, right? And I thought, oh, it's so heavy, right? And I don't think in the heaviness that's already going on that we should go into that topic of worthiness because that is a heavy topic. It is quite a bit because it's something that everybody struggles with. But I will rehash it, maybe bring it back to the table tomorrow after I've spent a little time outside. Cindy, that's cool and very interesting. Your life stories on Winnipeg and Manitoba. I love Canada. Aw. Uh, yes, of course, Cindy, you have contributed a lot to the community and people through your career, jobs, positions through the years. But that's getting old. We all build experiences. We all build stories, don't we, Tammy? I mean, I'm sure you have so many stories. And if I sat across the table with you with a cup of coffee, right, you could probably entertain me all night in the experiences that you've had in your own life, right? And yeah, it's much appreciated. You know, I really appreciate that you come in and spend so much time here on my on in my podcast and hang out with me and keep me company and listening to my ideas and my jibber jabber and right and it is really truly appreciated. It is some serious caregiving that you do give to me, and I really do appreciate that. Cindy, I don't know about you. I'm still an old school in many ways. I don't use all those fancy gadgets for cooking. I do use my cell phone and modern technology. I still like etc. I will. I'd like to do some more of it too. But like I said, I'd like to go back into my channel and see when I actually did start posting on YouTube. I didn't think it was 2012. I really thought it was 2014. Ah, okay, that's cool. Yes, we share our Lake Huron with Canada. Yeah, so it's not like you guys can make any changes or Canada can make any changes in the control of those waters because the waters are actually shared. Uh and it's a beautiful. I was down in that area in 2020. I went down for a seminar, no workshop in Toronto. I spent a week in Toronto. I actually set my car up like an RV and I parked it in a community center parking lot for a week while I did this workshop, and it worked out perfectly because every morning I'd get out of my bed that I had set up in the back of my seven-seater Outlander. I had everything down. It was just perfect vehicle for that. And I'd go into the community center and I'd go swim with the ladies and then I'd go and take a shower and get ready for my workshop. I didn't have any money, like no money to eat. All I had was a few oranges and some cheese that I brought with me. And every night after the workshops, everybody went to these fancy restaurants and everything. And for me, I just got on the subway and I went back to the community center and I would go for evening walks and look at all the neighborhoods and stuff. I got lost a couple of times in those neighborhoods. I got really, really lost. Like one night it was really scary lost. I had no idea where I was, and it was like in the middle of the night, right? But it was an experience. It really was an experience. And the last night of the workshop, I was able to go out for dinner because I had a paycheck deposited into my bank account, and so I had enough money to drive home and to go out for dinner that night. But it was a great experience, right? A great experience, and so many things could have messed up, and it was a challenge. There were lots of pushbacks, and I pushed right back, and I made it happen, right? But I was in that area. I was pretty close to where you are, Tammy, right? I didn't know you at the time, but maybe next time I'm in the neighborhood, right? I'll let you know. Maybe we can get together and have that coffee, sit across the table, have that coffee, and have that conversation. Uh, oh, good. working on my level 7 right now as a Google guide. And for myself, I like to keep it in my outdoor adventures. And but I do businesses and, like I said, restaurants on occasion. Um, and if I get good service, I always do a review, right? And like I said, I've got over 10 million views on my pictures, right? I don't know how many views I have on my reviews. I have probably lots, but I don't do as many reviews as I did my landscape because I always post all my landscape photos to Google Maps because Google tracks me when I'm out on the road. Google always knows where I am, right? So when I take a photo, they know exactly where that photo is and where it's from, right? So it's easy for me to post it to Google Maps, and it helps people out lots. It really does. When people are looking, how many times I've gotten lost looking for different provincial parks. Um, okay. We're going to pick a card. Late conversation today, but sometimes it works that way. That's the balance of it. And I'm grateful because this is the way I set my channel up, my brand out there, being that example for others. It can't all be heavy. It all can't be, stuff that stirs the pot. Sometimes we need a couple of days to digest what we take in. And I know I delve into some of those topics that are heavy, and I much appreciate that you guys come in and hang out with me. Tonight, we just kept it light. Okay, you guys, let's pick a card. Whoopsie. Ah. Oh my goodness. Here's one for you. Spectator. Never be so impatient that you miss the lessons in somebody else's experience, right? What were we just talking about, right? That mutually, that we appreciate each other, knowing that we all have something to contribute, right? It's important to let each other shine. It really is, but we can't shine in a way that diminishes ourselves. It's in that balance of give and take, right? In that appreciation for what each other brings to the table. And it is so true. Spectator, never be so impatient that you miss the lessons in somebody else's experience. That was a big one for me too. When especially when I was on Instagram and we were doing interviews and stuff, and I would meet people and they would ask me questions, and they would be telling their stories, and I would have the answer already inside me already. I'd be like this, all pumped up to get my turn to talk, and I had to learn, and it is in that practice of calming down, in that balance of letting somebody else have that time, right? Everybody has the opportunity to bring to the table. And lots of times, my excitement, right? That, oh, I got the answer. I can't wait. Right, right. And I'd go as they're talking away. And I would just be like, oh my goodness. And then by the time they were finished, it was already out of my head, right? And I had totally forgotten what I was so excited to say. And for the most part, I have to be honest in saying that that's why quite often I got overexcited when somebody would be talking. I go, oh man, let me tell you about that. Oh, I know this one. Let me help you with this one. I got this one. But I know because of short-term memory, like lots of times, in that excitement, you got the answer right away. But if you wait 10 seconds, it's just poof. It's just gone. And then lots of times they would finish and they'd look at me to jump in and give my insight on something, and I would just be blank because there was too much space in between, right? But that was okay. I was okay with that. I really was, because I do understand that everybody has an opportunity to bring something to the table. And it's important to let other people shine, let other people to contribute. One thing I love about doing these podcasts is the live chat, that people are actually able to come in and have their say, right? And it's important to be able to do that, to shine in however way that you can. But like I said, being a spectator, right? Never be so impatient, which was me, that you miss the lessons in somebody else's experience. And that was a lesson that I did have to learn. And maybe in saying that, I was thinking about giving Instagram 1 day a week, going in 1 day a week, maybe just for an hour, once a week, right? Meet up again with all those amazing people if they're still kicking around, right? And practice my craft, right? And picking up where I left off, right? Because it is only in showing up that we get better at what we do. And I would like to think that I would be a little bit better than I was in letting somebody else shine in what they do, letting somebody else bring to the table in that balance, right? That we're not all the be. I'm not here just for me, right? I'm not. It's done so much for me to have this platform, to have a voice as a small man, right? It has made me feel like I truly mattered, that I had something to contribute. But I'm not the only person in this world who has something to contribute. As a small man, we all have something to contribute. And it's just in our choices of how do we want to go about that. And if you want to join me, right? I'm thinking Wednesdays might be a good day that I go back on Instagram if you want to join me there, right? Maybe we can have a little bit of chit chat. And I have one friend there. She's from the Philippines, and she's always telling me that she wants to have a chit chat with me. And if I go back on Instagram, make sure that I message her. So it won't be this week, but I think maybe starting next week, next Wednesday, I'll go back on Instagram. We'll see how that goes, see how well I've progressed in that little bit of balance, in my overexcitement and in my impatience to have something to say, that I'm able to sit back and listen to others, right? Okay, you guys. That's going to be my good cheer for tonight. Nice and light, but sometimes that's the way it works out. You guys, have a great night, and I will be back tomorrow.